Make sure to check us out on Letterboxd for written reviews.
for films that we've done not only on the podcast, but outside of the podcast too.
Links in the description below.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Rewatch podcast. My name is Samuel.
And my name is Jayden.
And today we're joined by special guest, emergency guest, Heidi.
Yeah, they literally called
Welcome
me
back.
5 minutes before, so this is going to be fun.
So we're expecting well-prepared arguments from
And
you.
thoughts. Why do you go straight to arguments?
Well, you guys always dog out the MCU, and I have to be here to sort of give it some sort of moral support. So,
Yes.
you know.
Yes. This billion-dollar franchise really needs your moral support. That is, it's counting on
It
you.
does.
It's counting on you because otherwise, who will defend the MCU? You know, who will do it? A righteous cause. Okay, so this is a podcast where we talk extensively about a certain film and then decide whether it deserves a rewatch from you. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any other place you listen to podcasts. And if you enjoy the show, please leave a like on the YouTube video. And before I go any further, I just released a video about this movie from the perspective of a TASM fan. I won't say anything else, but you can go check that video out on our YouTube channel. If you'd like to reach the show, send us an email at theonerewatchpodcast@gmail.com. Jayden, what movie are you talking about today?
Spiderman oil.
Oh, I thought your mic just died there for a second. I thought he's just gone and blown his mic up with his Soup's impression just then. All right, Jayden, give us the plot synopsis, for this
Let's
film.
hit it. Radio. With Spider-Man's eyes. That's just stuck in my head. With Spider-Man's identity now revealed, our friendly neighborhood web slinger is unmasked and no longer able to separate his normal life as Peter Parker from the high stakes of being a superhero. When Peter asks for help from Doctor Strange, the stakes become even more dangerous, forcing him to discover what it truly means to be Spider-Man.
Very cool, very cool. I guess factual information about this film, it's made $1 billion now. So it in like 10 days or whatever, it's become, by far the best sort of performing movie of the year. So very big success. It's sitting at a 4.3 on Letterboxd. Heidi, is that justified? A 4.3? In your opinion?
I gave it 5 stars. I thought it was incredible. So anything less would be a disgrace to humanity and a war crime. So
Fair enough.
Right. See what I mean by arguments, Jayden? Like I don't think
Saying that, I felt like my soul leave my body.
Okay, Jayden, what are your thoughts? Give us your thoughts.
here we go.
Thoughts on the rating?
Is a 4.3 on Letterboxd justified for this film?
Look, I always do this. Let's compare it to The Dark Knight. Because why not?
Man. Stop it.
So The Dark Knight... The Dark Knight's a 4.4. So it sits at 0.1 of a rating above Spider-Man No Way Home. And look, I think we all loved the movie, right? But you also have to recognize that this movie technically isn't on the same level as, Schindler's List or, The Dark Knight or Shrek 2. So,
Take that back.
look, I think in terms of a subjective rating, a 4.3 is justified, but in terms of an objective rating, probably not.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think everybody is sort of rating this movie from the nostalgia factor. I feel like they walked out of the cinema and they rated it straight
But that
away.
was the purpose, was it not?
No,
Well,
I'm
The
saying
purpose
not to
of
be a.
this film was to be nostalgic. So to like have that taken away from the film and rate it without that, it's defeating the purpose of the movie.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
but
good
I mean,
point.
like, the nostalgia sort of, sometimes it can bias people to flaws that are in the
Yeah,
film.
but that's what I'm. That's
And
the point, though. The point was for the movie to be nostalgic. So to even take it out in some degree would to be ignore what the movie was intended to be made for.
see what I mean by arguments, Jayden?
What can I
Look,
say?
I want to stand at the middle ground here because I think, you know, what is the point of film rating and rating films and reviewing films? Do you do it from an objective standpoint or a
Yeah, that's the
subjective
whole thing.
standpoint?
Exactly.
Well, then,
And I think
my point with that is that some people are always going to like more films than others. Like, I absolutely love Spirit,
Yeah.
and that's because I'm a horse girl. You guys obviously would not watch that movie at all and would therefore rate it lower because that's not your thing. I don't think there ever can be an objective rating to a movie because you're
Oh,
always going
precisely.
to have
Well-
those subjective elements playing on it anyway. You can't get rid of that. It's human nature.
Well, yeah, I agree with that to a certain standpoint, but I have seen Little Women, which is like so out of the ordinary for me to watch. Like you'd probably think I'm, probably not straight if I watch that. But I went ahead and watched it, and I absolutely loved it. So, yeah, I don't know. It's weird.
All right. Well, that was a little discussion to start us off. Let's head into our actual general thoughts about this film. We're going to remain spoiler free for now, obviously. So everyone, including myself, has been warned. No spoilers. Okay, no spoilers. So without spoiling the movie, would you recommend this film to someone who hasn't seen it? And what is the sort of demographic for this movie? Let's go to Jayden first.
Me first. Okay. Yeah, look, I'd recommend this movie. It's been kind of hit or miss with the MCU so far in Phase 4, as they like to call it. Probably the only movie that I would recommend so far from the MCU in this new phase. I think anyone could pretty much enjoy this. I think it's just a good fun time sort of movie. As is with most of the MCU, it's pretty broad in terms of its range of audience. So yeah, I'd go check this one out.
Yeah, what do you reckon, Heidi?
Well, thanks for giving me the time to think of a sophisticated answer because, a
Yeah,
little
you're welcome.
preparation. No, I think I would definitely recommend this. I think there's a lot of like different emotions at play, and you don't need to know sort of the MCU or any of the history of anything to enjoy this movie and just to see how everything sort of plays out. So yeah, I would recommend this. Hell yeah.
Yeah, same. I would try get everybody to go and see this movie, but I do admit that the MCU sort of baggage, we have Doctor Strange coming in the very start, and we have lots of it starts off right where Far From Home ended, and so there's a lot of extra stuff that would that makes this film better if you know it going into the film.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I do agree that from a certain extent, I could probably pinpoint the sort of the act in the film where sort of a gear switches and we just go to just a good Spider-Man story. But there's a lot of MCU baggage that sort of like goes to that point, and then also we know sort of some of the villains in this movie. If you want to know where they're from and everything like that, you got to do a lot of background work.
Yeah.
That's a fair
that's fair,
assessment.
yeah.
Yeah. And is this film worth a rewatch? I know, Jayden, you've gone to see it twice, right?
Twice, yeah. So
Yeah.
I'd say definitely, yeah.
Yeah. And Heidi, you've only seen it once,
I've
right?
only seen it once, but I wanted to go and see it.
What?
I know, I'm sorry. I know, I'm already
What?
kicking myself over it. I wanted to go and see it in IMAX in the city, but our trip there got cut short, so I wasn't able to. But I'm definitely going to go watch it sometime next week again. So,
All of your Spider-Man No Way Home trips are getting cut short, aren't
yeah, it is so annoying. The universe is telling me not to go watch it. Well, screw you.
Yeah, I mean, my perspective, I've watched this film 3 times. I think one.
You're
with you,
about to see it
Jayden.
again as well.
Yeah. I saw it first with you, Jayden, then I saw it with you, Heidi, and then I saw it with my mate Nick, who's been on the podcast for Rogue One in where he lives. And yeah, I was about to go see it just then, but thankfully, well, not thankfully, unfortunately, rather, yeah, it's full. So everyone's still trying to go see this movie, and they didn't let me in. So thanks, thanks, thanks to the local cinema.
You're still
Thanks.
annoyed about that.
Yeah, I am. And excuse my lovely dog barking in the background. That's the sort of background noise you want in a podcast, isn't it?
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to some acting characters. We're only going to discuss let's discuss Tom Holland, Zendaya, Benedict Cumberbatch, the guy who plays Ned, and Jon Favreau, and that's it.
And that's it.
Yeah.
All right, who are the standouts for you guys?
Heidi?
Well, Tom Holland, always going to support my boy. I think he definitely was able to show his full emotional range in this film more than in Homecoming and Far From Home. And maybe, yeah, definitely more so in Endgame Infinity War, because of course he was barely on it for that because they had to spread it across. Yeah, I'd probably just say he's the standout, the first person I'd think of to give a really, really good performance and, be a really good Peter Parker, wholesome Peter Parker. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree, actually. He was certainly a lot better. Yeah, he was really good, actually. He had better material, I think, in terms of, he got to do the happy Peter Parker, and then he also got to do, the distraught and even the angry sort of side of Peter Parker, whereas I don't think he really got to tap into that in the other films.
No, yeah.
But Jayden, why do you like Zendaya in this film?
Why do I like Zendaya in this film? Look, I don't think she's a horrible actress. I think that she's got a bit of a problem in terms of just being underused or underutilized. I want to see her character go further than what it is right now. And that's the same with Ned as well. They're just sort of side characters that add nothing to the story. And every time they need some sort of event explained, they're just there to explain it.
Sure.
So I would like to see more from them and developed storylines. And if not, then they probably should just cut them out of the movies because they're just becoming useless in a sense.
Yeah, I will say though, I mean, I've come pretty hard down on sort of Zendaya and her performances in the other 2 Spider-Man films, but I actually think that she was okay in this. I would say she was average.
Sam, are you coming?
I think she
Are
was.
you coming down?
She was
with
fine,
the
and
fever? Is this Samuel speaking?
Yeah, what's happening there?
Yeah, but I didn't like her in Homecoming or Far From Home, but in this movie, I think she was better, but she still wasn't as good as I'd say even Kirsten Dunst was better as Mary Jane than Zendaya is as whoever she is. Yeah, and Kirsten Dunst wasn't that great.
No one really likes Kirsten Dunst.
That's just my opinion. She hasn't aged very well, let's say that. And I don't mean the person, I mean her character.
Yeah.
All right then. Any other performances, anybody like Doctor Strange or Ned or Happy Hogan?
Talking about performances in these movies is just kind of a joke to me because every now and then you have a character like Tom Holland who did brilliant in this movie, and then everyone else is just kind of there to support him. They don't really have anything going on. It's just everyone else is side characters.
Yeah. You can't really say that Ned, that performance was just really that was some great stuff. What were you going to say,
Well, no,
Heidi?
I was going to say that we'll probably be able to talk more about it once we get into the spoiler section. But without going there, there's not much to work with. But
Yeah. Okay. Let's go to something that we can work with then, which I think is the visuals. I think we can pretty much cover this somewhat comprehensively without sort of delving into the spoiler section. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give it to somebody else, even though I desperately want to go and have a rant about the visuals in this movie. But actually, let's
Yeah.
go to Heidi first. What did you think of like the cinematography and like the CGI and all of that?
Look, I'm not that technical with all this stuff. This is more so your guys' field of expertise. I'm just here to enjoy the experience. And I enjoyed the experience. I think there was a lot of shots in there that were really, really beautiful. And there is one shot, and it's in the trailer, of the slow mo rain, and you can see Tom Holland's
Yeah.
like distraught face, Peter Parker's distraught face, and that was beautiful. That was absolutely stunning to see in the cinema. I think for me, I found the CGI during like all the fight scenes and stuff okay. I was still able to see everything. It's not like Black Widow where they had the camera shaking and you couldn't even see like the fight choreo.
Sure.
But that's my opinion, and I'm sure you guys will have a different opinion because Samuel obviously wants to go on a rant about it. So I'll let you do that now.
Well, yeah. Well, Jayden, do you want to be? I'll give you this. I'll give you an easy ball for you to hit out of the park here. But
Yep.
what is that? A sort of rain, Spider-Man in the rain, staring at a
Blade Runner.
screen, sort of. Yeah. So,
Stop right there. But like, I'm all for it because it looked amazing. And that's what film is about, right? You
Yeah.
take from movies and make your own. So I found that to be pretty cool.
yeah.
I don't have as big of an issue with the CGI in this film as you do, Sam. I think that some of it was handled pretty well, and I think that some of it probably should have been done practically. So yeah, I would say it's a bit above average for the MCU.
Yeah.
When you compare it to other projects that they've done, this is pretty well done.
Yeah, I was searching for that grey filter, but I only sort of found it in that bridge fight, which we see in the trailer, and I was worried about that when we were sort of, talking about the trailer.
Mhm.
This looks just so great, looks like Civil War, and are the rest of the visuals going to suffer because of this sort of, this tendency for the MCU to just like base all fight scenes in like a concrete warehouse or whatever. But fortunately, that was not the case.
Unfortunately.
No, fortunately, that was not the case.
Yeah.
We got lots of different colors in this movie, which I really appreciated. But yes, the CGI was a bit hit or miss. Sometimes I think it was really good, and sometimes I couldn't see what was going on. I think the bridge fight was the worst in terms of the CGI and effects sort of thing. There was nothing real in that scene. I just don't think
Yeah.
and that's sort of the problem with a lot of these MCU movies is you never see set photos of MCU movies because they never shoot outside. Like it's
There is
all
no set.
yeah, there is no set. I mean,
Yeah.
we all saw the leaked images. Like it's just blue or green. Like it's either one or the other. Like it's and it's unfortunate. And there's a lot of elements in this film that needed to be shot inside as to avoid the public eye. And I understand that, but you still needed to do a lot more practical things. But at the end of the day, it's because the MCU movies there's like 5 of them a year, so they need to get them out quickly and that maybe they just don't have the time to really polish the CGI effects. But I believe that TASM 2 and TASM 1 CGI and effects are better than in this movie. But that's my opinion. So,
Okay.
all right, let's go to sound then. Let's touch a bit on the score, but be careful, obviously. And any other sound sort of elements. So I don't know, any like sound effects for the suit or anything like that. Anything jump out to you guys?
Not really. Yeah, obviously the score was a bit underwhelming, and we'll touch on that later on. But I think the sound design was handled fairly well. Nothing really jumped out to me as being either good or bad. So let's just put it as pretty average. It
Yeah.
handled. It was handled well.
Sure, sure. What do you think, Heidi? How did you like the score, just in general?
Yeah, I'd probably sort of say the same. Bit lackluster, but there is a scene at the end. Not going to say, but the score there was really, really good.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
It was really, really strong, and it like really captured all of the emotions in that scene. One thing that I did think, if I can actually English, was really good, was the ringing that they did for when like Peter had his spidey
Oh,
sense.
that's a
Yeah.
good that's a
Yeah,
good
I was gonna
point.
just touch on that. Yeah.
It was really cool how they brought that in because obviously we haven't seen that in the previous films.
Mm.
I mean,
Well, they just forgot about it in Homecoming, didn't they?
I don't think they forgot about it. They just
Oh,
like to
I
call
think
it
they
something
did.
else.
Oh, I think they did. No, they didn't call it anything. They just didn't have it in Homecoming.
Ah, so they completely just
no,
okay.
I think
It's like it didn't exist.
He was
And then in Infinity War,
mm,
in his next appearance, they had to show, oh, he's got the Spidey sense because his hair stands up on his arm. You know, when the first scene.
Maybe he was just sort of finding, his new powers
yeah, well, that's
there.
what I think because he's a kid, right?
Yeah.
His whole arc over these 3 movies is becoming like a true Spider-Man. So in that first one, it's finding responsibility. In the second one, it's about like trusting himself and trusting himself to use that Spidey sense. And then in this third one, it's about what it's really like to be Spider-Man. So yeah.
Sure,
Mhm.
sure.
Cool.
Yeah, but I really like the sound effect when his spider sense is sort of going off.
Mhm.
Again, because you can just go like, "Ooh, something's about to happen!" like, and that's cool. I think if I may touch on the TASM series, they use the sound effect. I think in TASM 2 and maybe TASM 1 as well, actually. But yeah, there's like a little, you know, there's like a little instrument that plays, and it's like, "Ooh."
Mhm.
Something's about to happen. So yeah, I like that. That's a good point. I would have forgotten about that actually. So that's a good point. All right, we're 21 minutes in. I think it's time to enter spoilers because I think we've exhausted sort of what we can talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've
So-
kind of run out.
Let's just issue that spoiler warning. If you haven't seen No Way Home, just leave and go and see it. Go see the movie. Okay. Let's dive straight into it. Jayden, I hear you have some thoughts about the promotional material of this movie. Let's go on that rant, shall we?
Yeah, I'll touch on it briefly just to keep time running. I think the promotional material for all of the Spider-Man movies has been pretty horrendous, and I'm trying to be as justified as I can here. But think about the potential that this movie had for its marketing and its posters and everything. And some of them, man, they just don't look good. Like it's just a fact. I'm sorry to say it, but like the official poster is horrendous. Um, when I first saw the official one when it first came out, like where Spider-Man's like kind of on a rock, I didn't mind it.
Right.
But now that it's kind of being done over, it's not good.
You're
just, like,
referring to the poster where Doctor Strange and the Iron Spider suit are like standing in midair.
midair, just sort of
And-
suspended in midair somehow.
Yeah, and there's octopus legs, and there's Green Goblin in the background, and
Yeah.
the universe is folding in on itself.
Yeah, and I just don't really like how Doctor Strange is like at the forefront of the promotional material. Yeah, he has a fairly big part in this movie, but if you think about it, really, he's actually in this movie for like half an hour, not even half an hour, and then he's like
yeah.
gone.
He comes
so
at the start and the end, sort of thing. Like
I just hate how they're using portals to market this movie when it's a Spider-Man movie. Let it be a Spider-Man movie. I've said this like so much. I think he's constantly been, or Tom Holland is constantly being overshadowed in his own movies. We had Iron Man plaguing Homecoming and Far From Home, and now they find the need to have Doctor Strange in a Spider-Man movie for some reason.
Yeah.
So I want a Spider-Man movie where Spider-Man is the forefront of it, and I feel like they were kind of getting it here, and they've set it up perfectly for the next one. So I hope they go into that and focus truly on that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point. Heidi, do you have any thoughts on like the posters or anything? Are there any posters that you like?
Yeah, well, I get the thing about the Doctor Strange thing, but then again, who else are they going to put on there? If it's just going to be a solo Tom Holland thing, yeah, go for it. But like, they're not exactly going to put any of the villains on there because that's part of the suspense. They don't want to put that on display. It's cool to see them in the background and people can point them out. But yeah, if they were going to do a poster, just have it with Tom.
Oh, you've,
I think we've just lost Heidi there.
Can you
we'll
hear me?
pause. Yeah, there you go. Keep
Okay,
going.
all right. Yeah, I don't think they would have been able to have anyone else on a poster with Tom. Yeah, because if they put the villains on there, well, then goes the suspense for the movie.
Sure.
Yeah, and I definitely understand that, but at the same time, I think it's also a bit of a problem the MCU has where all of their posters essentially look the same. You know, they've got the title at the bottom half, they've got floating heads in the center.
That's true. That is true.
And it's just kind of like go out of that zone, go out of the comfort zone, and make something different. You know, a character poster doesn't even need a character on it. Take June for example; it's literally just the sand dune, and it looks amazing. So you don't always have to have, you know, 5 or so characters filling up a poster. It could just be Tom Holland on the poster.
Sure.
Yeah.
There is one poster that I do really like, and it's the one that Letterboxd uses as the title poster or whatever. And it's of Tom Holland's Spidey. He's like on a ledge, and he's wearing the black and red suit, and it's like snowy, and there's like blue, and you can see like the advertisements of like him being Public Enemy #1 in the background, and I really like that poster. But even with that, like I would have changed some things. Like there's a bit too much going on as well. Like I feel like the MCU sort of struggles with just being like simple but cool. Like just give me like a very simple Spider-Man looking like he's been beaten up or like he's angry or whatever, and just give me a cool background, and that's it. Like that's all I need really. Like I but then again, you know, these MCU movies, they're marketing machines, you know. They need everyone in the cinema, and that's why they put all of the heads on the poster with the floaty heads.
Yeah.
You know, that's why they got to put everyone in there, because they want, you know, Elizabeth Olsen simps to turn up. They want, you know, Zendaya fans to turn up. They want, you know, they want Chris Evans. They want the mums to turn up for Jason Momoa. Like they want everyone. Like, you know, both DC and Marvel, they have like, you know, the big head posters, and but that's just try to get everyone in. So I understand why they do it, but it doesn't look good, and I agree. So, all right, that's a promotional material discussion out the way.
Bit of a rant, but
yeah. So let's go to some of the characters then. Obviously, this movie has people appearing from all over the place. Our first sort of major cameo is Daredevil, or not specifically Daredevil, but Matthew Murdock, or is it Matt Murdock, played by Charlie Cox. What do we all think of that one? He got a big cheer in our cinema, didn't it, Jayden?
Very big cheer. I like Daredevil as a character. I think he's probably one of the stronger characters that have come out of Marvel in, you know, recent years. But you know, it was cool to see him in the movie, but outside of that scene, there was like completely nothing from him. And I think I said this while we were watching the movie or after watching the movie, Sam, and I said it would have been cool to have like a court case sort of scene where, you know, Matthew Murdock's like trying to defend Spider-Man. I think that would have been really cool. But then again, you know, you run into a bit of a time issue because this movie is just completely overstuffed with like everything. So there probably wouldn't be time for that. But if they could find the time to do that and maybe cut a bit of Ned and Zendaya, then put it in, because I think it would have been cool. Yeah.
I love how we're just referring to Jacob battling as Ned, because it's Ned and Zendaya.
I always forget his name.
Zendaya. Yeah. Heidi, what are your thoughts on Daredevil?
Yeah, I loved it. I watched the Daredevil series in preparation for No Way Home, and I was right. He was in it. But yeah, I found it really cool also that they incorporated that, he's just not a lawyer. When the brick gets tossed through the window and he's able to catch it, and then there's that
Mhm.
whole reference like, oh, you know, I'm just a
Mm.
really good lawyer. That was enjoyable. I liked that, but and I would agree with Jayden. It would be really cool if we could see a court case like that, because
Mhm.
if he had more time on screen, I think it would have been good. But yeah, timing, and you had all of these villains to deal with, and getting them back home, yeah, it would have turned into like a 4-hour movie. So
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I found it sort of abrupt how Spider-Man's been accused of murder here with these, drones, and then Daredevil shows up and he's like, "Oh, don't worry, the charges are, there's not much substance to them. You'll be okay," and that's it. Like,
Yeah.
it's like I think a bit more of investigation went on, but that's John Watts just saying, you know what, just forget about that. We're starting the next part of the film now.
Yeah.
So let's just have Daredevil come in, say he's taking care of it, and then that's it. But he also references the fact that Happy might be in some legal trouble, but I'm sure that's not going to, come into the next movie or anything like that. I'm sure that's just not going to lead anywhere. So
It's
I
just
found
like
it,
a loose thread now.
I found it abrupt that sort of, Charlie Cox just sort of came in to just be like, you know what? Forget about that bit where you were accused of being murdered. We're going to get on with the rest of the movie now.
And I'll point this out while it's here. This movie like moves extremely fast. Like I don't know if you two noticed this, but it literally like jumps from one scene to the next to the next to the next in like the span of like 5 minutes. Like everything just happens. The first 30 minutes of this movie, even though they feel incredibly slow watching it for the second time, um, it moves like extremely quickly. Like you obviously start from the end of Far From Home, and then they're trying to escape, the paparazzi and whatever, and then all of a sudden we're in, I think it's Aunt May's apartment, and then Daredevil
Mm.
shows up, and then we go to Happy Hogan's apartment, and then you're just like constantly jumping around. I think Spider Man's doing some laundry or something in there. It moves like really fast.
I agree, and with all the university applications and stuff as well. The I agree. The first 30 minutes, it's very very quick, especially at the very start when uh, Tom Holland's running away with Zendaya. They get into the house, then they have a conversation, and as Peter Parker's identity's been revealed, they're having a conversation about Happy and Aunt May's sort of relationship, and the dialogue there was just so really like so fast. It's like John Watts was just like, okay, guys, we need to really like condense this bit, so just say it really, really, really fast.
Mm.
And I was a bit like, whoa, the first time I'm like, okay, this is just like typical MCU talking really fast, trying to do the quippy jokes and everything. But yeah, I think the movie sort of slows down to a better pace from a certain point. And I think that's sort of when Peter turns on Doctor Strange. I feel like from that point onwards, I think it's pretty well paced, but the bit is the first bit is a bit slow. But did you have that problem, Heidi? What were your thoughts?
well, yeah, I think that, yeah. So when everyone sort of gets found out and they go back to the apartment, I do agree that the whole divorce, not divorce, but like breakup talks were a bit quick. But I think that also had to do with the urgency of the situation, because he literally just got found
Sure.
out. So he's so stressed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do understand that they probably just want to move on to the next part of the movie. This part isn't important. Let's go to this now. Yeah, so I would probably agree that after the point where Doctor Strange does this spell and everyone sort of starts coming into the universe, that it slows down, and so we can focus more on what's happening and the roles that everyone sort of play. So yeah, I would agree in part with that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I think then let's move to who should we move to? Let's go some of the villains then, because the
Yep.
villains start to come in. Before we get to the villains, though, Doctor Strange does this spell, and as soon as magic comes into the movie, any movie for that matter, it's just like it creates so many plot holes because magic just does that. Because if you have magic, then why didn't you use that magic at an earlier movie, at an earlier point? Why didn't you use the magic in a different way? Because there's no limitations on magic, you know. So many theories can just be conducted to. There's already the theory like why didn't Doctor Strange just make Thanos forget that he wanted to wipe out half the universe? You know, that's Infinity War and Endgame solved for you. That's the sort of thing that happens when magic is introduced like this. But did you guys? How did you find the Doctor Strange spell with the plot of the film sort of getting the multiverse aspect kicked into gear? I recognize we have to do it somehow, but how was it handled?
I'll let Heidi go first.
Well, I think when I was watching, I was like, oh yeah, Doctor Strange, I don't know how he could sort of mess up a spell when Peter's just, talking and being like an annoying teenager. If he was meant to be the Sorcerer Supreme, well, prior to like him blipping and Wong becoming it, then you'd think he'd have a bit more experience, would be able to concentrate a bit more to get the spell done right. But yeah, I don't know.
Or just shut him up.
Yeah, shut him up. Like how he did with all the whatever the magic whip things are in Infinity War, and how he tightened up Thanos or whatever.
Yeah.
But again, I don't know how else they'd be able to bring in the multiverse into it. With the multiverse, it would sort of have to just be magic. I don't know. I couldn't think of anything else that would open up that avenue.
Jayden?
Yeah, look, I agree with that. You know, the MC will probably go on to explain this as it was a scroll or something. But yeah, I think the whole premise of the movie is just kind of rubbish, that it relies on Doctor Strange messing up a spell because Peter wanted to be happy again and his friends to forget that he was Spider-Man, or rather everyone to forget that he was Spider-Man. It's just weak, man. Like, it's just weak writing, and I kind of expected more from the MCU when it's developing probably one of the biggest events that it'll probably ever go through, the integration of the multiverse. Yeah, just the stakes that are at here, where they could go with this, introducing Fox properties and Netflix shows and such. It's just a bit weak when it comes to, Doctor Strange messing up a spell because Peter Parker couldn't shut up. Yeah.
I find it interesting that Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness was supposed to come out before this movie originally. But then it sort of had to be rearranged. And I feel like that had a huge effect on this movie. And I feel like it might have affected how the villains started to come into the movie because that Doctor Strange spell, the writing is pretty weak, and I feel like that might just be a quick sort of, oh no, like
fix.
we need to rearrange this movie.
Yeah.
We can't just take the Multiverse of Madness and apply it to this Spider-Man movie. We have to create the multiverse ourselves. But then at the end of the movie, they shut off the multiverse. They fix everything, right? So then Multiverse of Madness is essentially going from square one, or square,
Just redoing it.
Yeah, they're just starting again with the multiverse, because it's not like this film created a problem that Multiverse of Madness is going to have to solve, because Doctor Strange solved that problem in this movie.
Yeah,
so I feel like the order has been switched around, and it might have had an effect on the film. But let's talk about some of the villains then. We've got Doc Ock, Green Goblin, Electro, Sandman, and the Lizard.
The Sinister Five.
Yes, the Sinister Five. You just know that Sony was like, can we have one more? Can we just have
Why
one
do
more?
it? Honestly, why do it?
Yeah, it's going to be very hard to get the Sinister Six after this. I mean, this was the perfect opportunity to do it.
Yeah.
But even so, having these 5 villains, not all of them are on the team that's trying to kill Spider-Man, like it's more complicated than just like there's 6 villains and they're all united by this, this drive to kill Spider-Man. So
which honestly, like,
it's
I
not
quite
really
like
Sinister
that.
Six anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Oh, me
quite
too.
like the fact that Doc Ock, he started off evil because of his arms, or whatever you would call them, tentacles, and then Peter Parker cured him, which I felt was, it was deserving to the source material. It served it well, and that goes with Green Goblin as well. How they kept that thematic with Raimi's films, just sort of coming through, where he's sort of a split tone Dr. Jekyll. Um, he's good and bad. So I quite liked how those characters were on either side, and even Sandman had a bit of that going for him.
Mm.
Because at the end of Spider-Man 3, I know you two both hate Spider-Man 3, and so do I. But Sandman, he's not particularly like a bad guy. He's just
Yeah.
sort of stuck in the wrong situations.
Mm.
So I quite liked how he, at the start, tried to save Peter Parker, which I thought was
Yeah.
quite cool.
Yeah, and all of their motives are a bit different, except for, I'd say, the lizard. The lizard is just there. Like, the lizard is just there. But Heidi, what were some of your favorite villains?
Well, yeah, I always say, maybe a bit controversially, that I preferred Doc Ock over Green Goblin just a tiny bit, because he does end up doing the right thing by the end, whereas Green Goblin is like, he's nuts. He can't control himself. And but what I do really like about Green Goblin in this film particularly is how you can tell the change in the voice. I thought very easily, but at the same time, it's still like, oh my god, he's gone bad. Like, the scene where they're in the apartment, and
Yep.
Green Goblin has his back facing the window, and he says something. And when I was watching it with Sam, I turned to him and was like, that's not that's not his normal voice.
Norman
That's the
Osborn.
Green Goblin's voice. He's
Mm.
changed, and something is going to happen. So I really, really enjoyed that. And Willem Dafoe was absolutely fantastic. Alfred Molina was absolutely fantastic. His scene at the end with our Tobey Maguire, Peter Parker, it was, oh, you've all grown up. That was so wholesome. I really appreciated how that came back in. And so I think, Lizard was just chaotic. He didn't have.
He was just there.
And then Sandman just sort of turned out of nowhere. I get that he wants to go home and see his daughter, but then he becomes one of the three like big sort of villains that they fight at the end for like no reason.
On my second, I think actually not on my second, but on my third watch of the movie, the first thing that Sandman says to Peter Parker in that final battle is, "Where's the box?" Like, he's not trying to kill Peter necessarily. He's just trying to get the box. He's sort of operating like individually from the rest of the villains, but the movie doesn't make it seem like that when the villains, we have that shot that's in the trailer where it's like Lizard, Sandman, and Electro, and it's like they're all gonna kill Spider-Man. That sort of takes away from Sandman having his own sort of motive, because when I first watched it, I was like, hang on, Sandman just wanted to go back home, but then in the final battle he's like, oh, I'm just gonna throw my sand everywhere and try and kill everyone. So
that's a shame, right? Because I quite like that aspect of it, where he's, like you said, operating on a different wavelength from the Sinister Five or Sinister Four. He's doing his own sort of thing, where he's trying to get the box so he can go home. The Sinister Six is trying to get the box and destroy it so they can have fulfilled lives, and then Peter Parker's trying to take the box and hold on to it just to save anything from happening. So they're all sort of doing their own different things. And Sandman's motive here actually makes like complete sense when you start to think about it. Like, he's an evil guy at heart. Like, he's a villain, obviously. So he doesn't really care about any of the other villains and what their fate ends up being. If that means, he can get home and killing them, he's going to do that. So yeah, it makes sense, strangely.
Yeah. Let's go to Electro. It falls on me, of course, but we got to give some love to Jamie Foxx, because even though I have a few issues, such as why is he human again and why is his lightning yellow, I know the real reason for that is because Jamie Foxx didn't want to wear makeup, and he wanted to put a bit more of his personality into the role. But you got to at least explain why that is. He sort of just he does recognize it. He's like, "Oh, I got my body back," but like, there's no like why. So, but apart from that, actually, sorry, one more thing. He doesn't know who Peter Parker. Like, he doesn't know who Spider-Man is in TASM 2. He never finds out. He's the only villain. He's the only villain in the entire Spider-Man saga, in terms of the live-action movies, that never actually finds out Spider-Man's true identity, because he doesn't care. His problem's not with Peter Parker. His problem is with Spider-Man in TASM 2. And so it doesn't make sense for him to come across, except for, I don't know, magic. So, I don't know. But what did you guys think of Electro just as a whole, and Jamie Foxx back as Electro?
I thought that in the end of TASM 2, that Harry Osborn told Electro that Peter Parker was Spider-Man.
Oh God, don't
Nah. They do have an exchange where Electro's like, I had a friend once, it didn't work out, and he's referring to Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And then Dane DeHaan's like, yeah, me too. But he's referring to Peter Parker. But even though they're the same person, but they never actually are like, oh, the person I had a problem with was Spider-Man. And then he's like, oh, well, that's Peter Parker, right? And he's like, I don't care. I don't know who that is. Like, he doesn't have any reason to know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. So it doesn't really make sense why he's here in the first place. Because the rest of them do. The rest of them do find out that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, except for Electro.
Right.
And I stand by that from my TASM 2 knowledge.
Yes, I won't question that. That's interesting, isn't it? Maybe Electro just found out in some sort of TASM 2 lore. He put two and two together, and that's the reason that he's in No Way Home.
And I'm sure maybe, Dane DeHaan's Green Goblin maybe told him off screen or something. I think that's what they're saying.
Yeah.
Just while they were walking to Oscorp to do their little coup, Dane DeHaan was just like, oh, Peter Parker's Spider-Man, right? And Electro's like, I don't care. But at least he knows now.
Teleported.
Yeah.
But at the same time, actually, just to backtrack on all of this, doesn't Electro get teleported? He explains like when he's getting teleported, and I'm pretty sure he gets teleported at the power plant in the final battle.
Yeah.
So, I was beating up Spider-Man, and then so
he was about to die.
There's no time in between where he could figure out who Spider-Man was. So that's just a genuine like plot hole there.
No, but he did meet Dane DeHaan's Green Goblin earlier in the film, so he still might have had an exchange there. But yeah, he was transported, like a lot of the villains, was transported right before he died. So, don't really know how that makes sense, but magic. So, that's the thing. All right, should we talk about the suits? Everyone's suits here.
Let's do it.
So let's reveal that obviously Tom Holland is not the only Spider-Man in this movie. We have some returning friends. We have Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield back as their respective Spider-Men or Spider-Mans, and their suits. What did we think of not only their suits, but actually, sorry, let's go to Heidi. What were your thoughts on all of the different Tom Holland suits? Because we have the red and black one, we have the Iron Spider one, then we have the Inside Out one, which is the black and yellow one, and then the red and black one with the gold symbol on it.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
I think so.
The integrated suit.
Yeah, integrated suit, and then the is it the post credits or like the very, very end of the film where we have the
at the end of the film. Yeah, we have the comic accurate one.
Yeah. I think I really, really liked the integrated suit. I thought that looked really, really cool. And the red and black suit. I like the Iron Spider suit because of the nanotechnology. Someone laughing at me. Shut up. I thought the Inside Out suit was a bit weird. I mean, surely there's
it doesn't really make sense.
There's multiple problems with that of having your suit inside out, and multiple problems that could happen with the tech.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, so considering you guys are laughing at me, I will let you have your own opinions.
Right, Jayden, what do you think of Tom Holland's suits then?
Eh, I agree on the flipped inside out suit. It doesn't really make sense. How the lenses sort of turned
Yeah.
around the other way now, and if Tom Holland was wearing this suit normally, wouldn't there be like a bunch of wires
Yeah, that'd be
poking into him?
uncomfortable. Yeah.
Because he doesn't wear anything other than the suit when he's like wearing
Yeah.
it. So it's a bit weird. I absolutely hate the Iron Spider suit. I think it's atrocious. There's really no explaining needed to be done there. It is comic accurate.
No, it's not.
No, there is an Iron Spider suit.
Yeah, but it's not. It doesn't look like that.
Is it not
has
shiny?
It has the gold legs, but
Okay.
the actual style of it is. I mean, you played the Spider-Man PS4 game.
That is true.
The comic one's in there.
Well,
It's
the
like
MCU
red.
has blinded me.
Yeah.
Look, I hate the suit. I think it's terrible. I don't hate the fact that it's, Iron Man gave it to him. I just think it looks bad as like a Spider-Man suit. I'm more of like a sort of, I like the fabrics so you can like see the ripples in it and stuff. And then that kind of comes in with the integrated suit, how there's like still metal on the suit, which I just don't like. So I think I don't really like that suit either.
Sure.
I don't mind the Far From Home and Homecoming suits, like the fabric black and blue ones. I probably would have liked them to be a bit more practical so you can see the imperfections on it. So yeah, I didn't really enjoy any of the suits from Spider-Man in this movie, bar the I'm just going to refer to it as a post-credit scene where we see his new suit, because
Sure.
I genuinely like the look of that, and that is like a contender for like one of the best Spider-Man suits in my opinion.
Yeah, nice. All right. I agree. I really like the red and black Far From Home suit too, and there's a couple scenes where there's no CGI because he has the mask off, and it's in like Doctor Strange's lair or whatever, and the suit looks so good there, and it's just because they can't CGI it because he doesn't have the mask on. But as soon as he puts a mask on and he's fighting Doctor Strange, it just looks weird, man. Like it just looks a bit off. But I love the look of it when he doesn't have the mask on because it just looks so cool. And then obviously the one at the end is really cool as well. But we didn't really get much of a detailed look at that suit, so I have to wait and see as to how that ranks in the Spidey suit sort of ladder. But tasm 2 will always be the best one, obviously. And my goodness, that suit looks just as good as it did in 2014. Unfortunately, it was CGI'd quite a bit, and it didn't look as good when it was CGI'd. But when it was practical, my goodness, it was beautiful.
Well, I'm just going to jump in here. So obviously it was CGI'd, and I've got some issues with that. But it was also CGI'd in TASM 2.
But it was CGI'd better.
Yeah. So I think there's just a bit of an issue in terms of getting back the original effects artists, VFX artists. So I don't know whether they came back or not.
Well, wasn't there a rumor that they were?
Yeah, I think you were talking about that with me sometime. But like clearly not, because it would have been at the same level of quality. And I'm pretty sure this has a bigger budget than TASM 2, even though TASM 2 had a huge budget. So yeah, it's just a bit weird how the suit looks worse in terms of CGI, however many years later. 9?
Yeah, and Toby's looked a bit off too sometimes. You can always tell by looking at the lenses. I feel like that sort of gives it away sometimes. But anyway, I don't want to spend too much time on this. We've touched on the Spidey sense. The next heading is John Watts. My goodness. Let's all have a fight, shall we? What do we think as John Watts as a director of these 3 films? How do these films work as a trilogy? Let's go to Heidi. She sort of explained it a bit earlier, but
I won't laugh this time.
Yeah, thanks. Try and restrain yourself, man. Okay, so yeah, I think this works well as a trilogy. And don't say anything. I really appreciate that. To me, I see an overarching sort of theme across all the three movies. It's him growing into the Spider-Man, and I know you guys are saying that by the end of this film, he really has become Spider-Man because he's moved into his own apartment and it's just him. Well, that's from a process of in Homecoming to him being just like a little brat, um, running around, doesn't really know um, responsibility of his own actions, and he wants to do more. Far from home, he's just been traumatized by seeing his mentor die, and his spider sense probably, heard the last heartbeat of Tony Stark. That's a bit traumatizing. So you have to trust yourself again to be able to get back up to that point. And then this, again, is the with great power becomes great responsibility. So there's a lot to build up to, and I think it was done really well. I know you boys probably don't think the same, so let's hear your thoughts.
So, look, all I'll say is this is John Watts' last Spider-Man movie, and all I can say is good riddance. Oh my
So rude.
Because, like, look, at the end of the day, like, as much as I love this movie because of what happens in the third act, or the second act, from second act onwards, he's made two movies that just aren't Spider-Man movies. Like, they're only Spider-Man movies by title. And I get that, like, now, you could say, like, this is his journey to become Spider-Man, but why couldn't we have just, like, started him off being Spider-Man? Like, why is this the end goal, to actually make the Spider-Man like the Spider-Man we know and love at the end of three movies? Like, why couldn't we just do that in the first movie? But it's because they want to tie him into all the other MCU movies. So what do you think, Jayden, from John Watson, is sort of his style or lack thereof?
Okay. I'm trying so hard to be a middle ground here. Look, I don't know. I haven't seen any other movies from John Watts, so I'm not going to comment
Yeah,
on
me neither.
his directorial skills. But I don't know whether it's an issue of the MCU not allowing him to be,
Yeah, that's probably it.
creatively free, or whether it's just not there for me in terms of how he directs movies. So I'm not going to comment on that specifically. In terms of Spider-Man sort of growing into his character, um, I don't mind Homecoming as a movie. I think it's fairly okay. I don't like Far From Home from memory, and I don't think Spider-Man's particularly the issue with that. I think Spider-Man's a pretty consistent character throughout these three movies, and like Heidi said, it's like fulfilling when you get to see him sort of mature after three movies. So maybe that's the reason that they did it. Um, and obviously, we're going to have more Spider-Man movies, and we'll get to see him mature now. So that's cool. And if you were to see him mature from Homecoming and then have like seven other movies from there on out of him being mature, it would just kind of get like bland and boring. Um, so it's kind of cool how they're doing, stages, high school, college, probably later on in life where,
Sure.
he's, Peter B. Parker sort of vibes. Um, so I don't mind the sort of aspect of him growing up and becoming Spider-Man. It's sort of like a mini origin story for him.
Yeah. I do feel like, this whole trilogy was kind of, his origin story. But I mean, the others had their origin story in one movie, so, that's all. That's all
Fair
I'll
enough.
say. You wanted to touch on, Jayden, just like the tonal imbalance in the movie sometimes. Just obviously we have those typical MCU jokes that
Yeah.
sort of appear when they're not really necessary. Do you want to have some quick thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, I touched on this in my review. I think MCU struggles with this a lot. I really enjoyed certain aspects of this movie, where it goes into the more mature aspect of him. Obviously where we see Aunt May die, and Tom Holland is like actually acting, and then we have the whole Blade Runner sequence. Um, we have the whole ending sequence, which I absolutely love, where he goes to see MJ and Ned in the coffee shop.
Yeah.
Because he sort of holds back on like telling MJ,
Mm.
I'm Spider-Man, I'm Peter Parker. So
It's a great Tom Holland impression.
I like that aspect of it, where we see him sort of growing up, and then the whole scene where he moves into his apartment. You genuinely like feel like he is Spider-Man now. Like he's growing up, he's ready to take on bigger threats now. So yeah, I really really enjoy like the last half hour of this movie.
Yeah,
I think it's
yeah.
fantastic.
Heidi, what did you think of Aunt May's death? Would I be right in saying you were a bit on the emotional side of things when that was going on?
Yeah, well, I always expected her to die. That was on my list of people who I thought were going to die. But the fact that it almost didn't look like it at first, like she got up, she was fine, she was walking around, and then it just happened so suddenly. And the emotion in that scene from just it happening and then Tom looking up and seeing Happy outside. Yeah, I was tearing up a bit in the cinema. You know, it was good. I enjoyed it. Well, that sounds weird, but
I enjoyed her pain. I enjoyed watching her die.
You guys know what I mean.
God, what are you, psycho?
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, it's okay. It's okay. I enjoyed that as well, and I also really enjoyed the "with great power comes great responsibility" line.
Let me just correct you there. The line is, "With great power, there must also come great responsibility."
That's what she says, but
That's what she says, and that's
yeah.
the original comic version of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I don't know whether it's referenced in TASM 2 or TASM 1 with
No, he
Ben
says it
Parker.
differently. What he says is like, your father believed in the philosophy. He but said that, you know, if you could do good things for other people, then you have an obligation to do those things, because they didn't want to repeat it.
It's
So
like not on the nose.
yeah.
But in the original Spider-Man, the line is, "With great power comes great responsibility."
Right.
So it's kind of cool how in Spider-Man No Way Home they're going back to like the original comic roots of it, like referencing it like completely line to line, word to word.
Yeah.
Which I think is cool.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, that's another thing that I really liked about this movie, and I will give credit to John Watts for this, was the action scenes. Apart from the Doc Ock on the bridge fight, all of the other action scenes were actually like really good, and far above a lot of other MCU movies. Essentially, whenever Spider-Man was fighting Green Goblin, like that was fantastic. Like that was really, really good. Like you could feel the weight of things. Spider-Man was actually punching someone for once. You know, things were getting aggressive, and Green Goblin was taunting him, and it was fantastic. That first one in Happy's sort of apartment, and then obviously that last altercation on the sort of Captain America shield, that looked fantastic. I just genuinely really, really liked, except for that Doc Ock one, all of the action scenes in this film. What did you guys think about? Any thoughts on the action scenes? Or
Heidi,
Why is it always passed to me, man? No, okay.
you want me to go first? I'll go.
You go.
Okay. Yeah, no, I completely agree with Sam there. I think the action was handled fantastically. It's really cool to see like Spider-Man punching someone for once. And that like goes back to the whole mature aspect of it. And actually seeing like blood in the movie is really cool. Like I don't think we've seen that in previous iterations. Even in, you know, Spider-Man and Spider-Man in the TASM universe. So it's cool to see that. And, you know, you can genuinely feel that Peter Parker, Tom Holland's Peter Parker, is like really annoyed with Green Goblin. And that comes across because of the, you know, the real hardcore action sequences.
Yeah. What did you think, Heidi? I know you liked when Green Goblin was sort of taunting Spider-Man, and Tom Holland was just, you know, going ham. He's just punching him over and over and over
Oh
again.
yeah, no, that was fantastic. I was like on the edge of my seat. It was so good, and I actually remember sending you a meme, Samuel. Not even a meme, a quote from Tom Holland prior to when the movie came out, and Tom was saying, "Oh yeah, you know, it gets really bloody in this movie," and you laughed at it. You're like, "Yeah, right." Well, here's I told you so. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't believe it. I was like, no, he doesn't. It won't be that violent. Like Tom Holland probably thinks it's violent, but it's not really. But yeah, I'll admit I was wrong there.
My boy absolutely got a beating in, and I really, really also liked his absolute determination. Even when Tobey Maguire's Peter comes in front and holds the glider to stop Tom
He pushes
from
it. Yeah.
like skewering
Green Goblin, and like he pushes it down
the
further
second
for the
time.
second time.
Yeah.
Like he is determined. He wants to kill him. It's very, very clear,
Yeah.
and it's that dark sort of aspect of Peter. You can really see how much Aunt May's death has affected him in that scene, and it's really, really good.
Yeah. I love that starting shot in that sort of 1v1 fight where he's like, yeah, I didn't kill you because with the box because I wanted to kill you myself. And then he does like the Spider-Man pose, but like he's so mad and it is just fantastic. He goes into like, the on the ground Spider-Man pose
Yeah,
with like
yeah.
his leg outstretched and he's like just like so angry and I'm like, oh yes, this is what I needed. But yes, and that's what I mean. Like some of the cinematography, like was just brilliant. Some of it was just crap. Anyway, let's go quickly to the other Spider-Men. What do we think of their appearance? I actually believe that it wasn't like just blatant fan service. Like they actually had a decent role in the plot with regard to Tom Holland's like arc with with Aunt May dying and then him wanting to just like throw out his responsibility and just give up. They sort of came in to give him a pep talk and refer to their life events and give him some advice. So I really appreciated that it wasn't just here's the other Spider-Man, buy your tickets and go see it. It was actually a meaningful part of the film itself. So Heidi, what did you think about Tobey Maguire and the GOAT Andrew Garfield back as Spider-Man?
Yeah, honestly, they were fantastic, and they really did have a purpose in it. They weren't just there for fan service, like you were saying. Like, obviously, Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, I think he honestly was more popular than Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man in this film, based on a few sort of audience reactions that I've listened to.
Yeah.
But he obviously, I think he had a much bigger role to play because again, he had that trauma of losing Gwen. And I know obviously Tobey Maguire's Peter lost his uncle, but to lose your girlfriend because
So did Andrew's.
yeah, oh yeah, well,
that is true,
yeah.
yeah.
But to lose your girlfriend because and you were there, you were as Spider-Man, and it was directly because of something, and you were able to do it. You tried to save that person. That's a lot on your shoulders. So he really acted as like a wholesome dad, and I loved it.
Yeah.
What did you reckon, Jayden, from the goats returning?
Oh, yeah. What's already been said. I really liked how they had like fulfilled character arcs here. Obviously, that's what everyone really wanted from this movie, is to sort of finish off mainly Andrew Garfield's storyline. And we definitely get that with him catching MJ, which I think was handled fantastically. This time he actually goes for more of a better sort of catch with
Well,
his own
no,
arms.
yeah, well.
Okay, I'll let you take this down. I'll let you take this down.
Nah, so this catch was like very easy catch. Like he was very close to her when he jumped off,
Yeah.
and he was able to grab her with his arms and then web up, which is like I agree, as certainly a better idea than trying to get them with the web. But Emma Stone, like she was falling far, like way before he actually realized that she was falling. And so he was playing catch up. He couldn't just dive down after her and hope to grab her with his arms before she hit the ground. Otherwise, he would have done that. But instead, he had to shoot that web, which extended like a little hand. And he was trying to shoot the web to then catch her and then grab onto something, which probably either way, even if she didn't hit her head on the ground, she probably would have died just because of the force, stopping so quickly.
So she died from the whiplash, essentially. And I'm just going to completely, go back on what you said there, Sam. But at the same time, Andrew could have used his webs to save MJ here. Like, it's just a fact.
Sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So he's sort of learned that if he was to use his webs here, MJ would probably die at the same time because of the whiplash of, your head going back and cracking your neck.
Yeah, he's also not he's not diving down a tower that he could grab onto something. Like he's just they're both falling in midair essentially. Like there's nothing that he can web her, grab the web, and then grab some nearby building to stop him. But yeah, either way, I agree. I agree with what you're saying, Jay.
Yeah, and I like that whole interaction when he ends up catching her. And,
Oh yeah,
he's
so
like,
good.
"Are you okay?" And she's like, "Yeah, are you okay?" And you sort of see him tearing up. And that
Great acting.
it's so satisfying to see Andrew Garfield just sort of return to character there, because obviously Spider-Man means so much to him. And then with Tobey Maguire and his whole sort of finishing off his character arc, we sort of get it in two limbs, where he has that whole interaction with Doc Ock, and he's like, "The power of the sun in your hand," or something like that. And I think that's cool. And he's like, "Oh, you've grown up. How you doing?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm doing all right." So I think that's quite cool. And then probably one of my favorite scenes in the movie is when Tobey Maguire steps in front of Green Goblin's glider. That's just such like a full circle for Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. Because I don't know when it was that you two watched Spider-Man, the original.
Recently.
Yeah. So he absolutely despises Green Goblin in that movie. And at the end, obviously Green Goblin gets skewered by his own glider, and that's not Tobey Maguire's fault.
He does jump out the way, though.
He does jump out of the way, but in this movie, you see him genuinely like want to give Green Goblin like a second chance, or Norman Osborn a second chance, because now he notices that there's a split tone to the character. So I think that's just such like a fulfilling moment when he steps in front of the glider, because it shows that he is, a mature Spider-Man now. He knows and he cares about saving people. So I think that's a fantastic moment.
Yeah, we do get a lot of really great emotional moments, but I also appreciated some of the lighter moments, when all three were sort of discussing, their past villains, and Andrew's like, I haven't fought an alien. I want to fight an alien. And then Toby's just like, hey, you're amazing. Okay, you're amazing. Just so many little things, and then Toby not having web shooters. Like, we kind of could have predicted that was going to be discussed. It's just such a big meme on the internet.
Yeah.
And then obviously the back cracking, like all of just their chemistry was just really, really good, in my opinion. So, any thoughts on that from the Tom Holland fan in the room?
No, I loved how wholesome they were with each other, and like, the brothers, and then the big hug at the end. That was so sweet. And then another thing that there's memes all about is even just in the science lab when they called out, "Oh, Peter," and it's like, "Oh yeah," all three at the same time. It's like, "Peter Parker, yeah, all the same."
Same problem.
So
it's very. You go on.
Oh no, I was just gonna say it was really, really wholesome to see their interactions.
Yeah. It's very subtle, but in that scene, the Spider-Men are pointing at one another, and I don't know if you two noticed this.
Right.
So it's like referencing the Spider-Man pointing meme, which obviously, it definitely had to be in this movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the interactions were fantastic between all three of them. I wouldn't have changed anything, because I couldn't think of anything else. They pretty much touched on everything.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a small thing. I really like the smile and the nod that like Tom Holland gives Andrew Garfield when he's like, "I really love you guys," and then Tom Holland's like,
Thanks.
Thanks. Yeah, that's great. Another thing that I liked, a small thing, was when they started fighting and they realized that they weren't very good at working as a team. And so Tom Holland's like, "Look, I'm gonna brag here. I was in the Avengers," and Toby's like, "What? That's great. What is that?" And just the whole crowd was just laughing, and Andrew was like, "Are you the band?" And then Tom Holland starts to sort of give this lengthy explanation of the Avengers, and Tobey Maguire's just like, "How is this helping?" It's just really, really good, just the chemistry there. And I love Andrew saying, "I love you guys," because that is just like such a correct representation of his character, because he's such a loving sort of character in those movies. He's very quick to sort of, give his emotions, and he wears his heart on his sleeve. And so that's a very Andrew Garfield Spider-Man thing to do. Just be like, "I love you guys," even though he met them like,
it would be
half a day
interesting
ago.
to see whether he was involved in the writing for his character.
I imagine Mark Webb might have been.
Yeah, being on the sidelines, sort of like saying this is what the character should be like, because obviously the MCU hasn't really been involved in those projects, so them writing the character would have came across different.
Yeah, and it's good. I was very worried that they weren't going to address Gwen Stacy's death, and the characters were not going to feel like they did in their own separate movies. I feel like they might have just become, just quippy MCU Spider-Man heroes, but they really stayed true to the separate characters. So I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
All right. Final swing. I don't know. We all love a bit of the final swing. But any thoughts specifically on Spider-Man swinging through the snow after that great scene where he realizes that MJ and Ned are very happy, just without him in their lives, and so he just makes the responsible decision to just leave them as it is.
Yeah, look, I already said this. I absolutely love the new suit. It's got aspects of Tom Holland's, previous suits in there in terms of the lenses, and I think some of the webbing is going to like look the same, where it's like flush to his body. So I love the look of it. How it's kind of got that glossy sort of Christmas look on it. And at the same time, that kind of worries me. Maybe it's just like a seasonal suit for him, and he's just going to have it in this one scene, which I would be very disappointed about. Because to me, it's already blowing all of the other ones out of the water, and I've only seen it for like 5 seconds.
Yeah, fair. Heidi, how did you like that final swing at the end, and also the scene where he tells MJ that he wants a coffee and such?
I thought that was the scene where Peter like makes the conscious decision not to sort of bring them back into his life again. I thought that was really sweet, and that definitely shows a lot of growth. And when he first moved to the apartment, and then I saw the sewing machine, and I saw it was a really sparkly blue material. I was like,
It is,
what?
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah.
But no, it does look really,
Yeah.
really good. And the swinging scene, I thought it looked really good. I thought the colors all worked, and it looked really cool. It was really aesthetically pleasing. So, job well done, man.
Yeah, we've never seen Spider-Man swinging through the snow before, actually. So at least I don't think so. And so that was cool to see. But yeah, it's still not as good as the TASM 2 web swinging, but it was a visible
Just had to
improvement.
sneak that in.
Bring it up at any chance he can get.
I'll just say that it's really cool to see the MCU Spider-Man just swinging in New York in general.
Yes.
I'd like to see more of that.
Finally. Yeah.
But
It's
we
good.
have seen that in previous movies. They just don't do it a lot.
At the end of Far From Home.
Yeah.
There's a big one, but that's about it. Okay, so the big question then, we have Spider-Man sort of set up kind of independent from the MCU now, because none of the Avengers know who he is. I mean, they would still know who Spider-Man is, right? But they just wouldn't know that Spider-Man is Peter Parker. So it kind of leaves the door open for this character, Spider-Man, to still be in the MCU, or to just go on his own, on his own sort of separate adventures. So, guys, let's get our takes on where we think Spider-Man can go from here. Let's start with Heidi first.
If you don't have one, Heidi, I can go first.
Yeah, you might go first, because I
Okay.
need to think.
Go to Jayden.
I can go first. I was just saving you there. Look, I said this to Sam. We've got a more mature Spider-Man now, and I want them to continue with that in the next installment of films, however many there are. Obviously, Miles Morales has been name dropped by Jamie Foxx as Electro.
Sure.
So it's time that they bring him in. Obviously, they also referenced that in Homecoming, and they've just kind of, left it just kind of sitting there, and they haven't touched it. So if there's any appropriate time to bring him in, it's now. They shouldn't wait any longer. So I want to see a film where Spider-Man is maybe just sort of like a Homecoming sort of film where he's just fighting one villain, rather than like a whole bunch of villains. Maybe, that's Kraven the Hunter. Maybe that's Mysterio if he returns again, whoever it may be. And we just have like a genuinely like dark Spider-Man film. And then maybe in a few films time, he's, beginning to coach Miles Morales, and then Miles Morales is the next Spider-Man. So yeah, just sort of him handing off the torch to Miles, I think would be quite
Yeah,
cool.
I would like to see Miles come in, but I think the only problem with that is that Tom Holland looks like he's 12 years old. So if you bring in a Miles Morales, he needs to look incredibly young in
Mhm.
order for Tom Holland to look like he could actually mentor a Miles Morales.
Well,
Because we've seen like in the PS4 game, right?
mhm.
It's a seasoned Spider-Man, even in Into the Spider-Verse, at the very start with Chris Pine's Spider-Man. It's a veteran Spider-Man, and I don't think this Spider-Man is a veteran level Spider-Man yet. I
Okay.
think so, but I think maybe give us maybe 1 or 2 movies, and then you can do like Spider-Man and Miles Morales together, and then that can sort of be Tom Holland's sort of passing the torch.
Yeah. So maybe that's just an issue with Tom Holland. He's quite like a young looking guy. So maybe however
But
many
he's still
films he
quite
has.
young in real life. Like he's
Yeah.
a lot younger than Andrew Garfield.
Yeah, and I think what you're just holding out for is sort of like a Peter B. Parker moment where he's got a beard and he's getting a lot older, or like a Tobey Maguire in No Way Home sort of look. And you're not going to get that for a bit.
I
So
still
I
want
think
a veteran Spider-Man though. You can be
yeah,
a
yeah,
veteran Spider-Man and still look as young as Tom Holland
yeah, yeah.
does. But
So
he needs to have a confidence about him. He's not a confident person yet,
yep,
especially the Peter Parker. He needs to develop his sort of Spider-Man abilities, and I reckon he can do that over 1 or 2 films and sort of start to become more confident in his Spider-Maning stuff, and then
yeah,
you can sort of bring in Miles Morales. But if you do Miles Morales in the next movie, it's not going to work.
yeah.
They're going to be like mates. They're going to be mates.
He's
Which,
definitely like the youngest looking of the Spider-Man, and that's a fact. And they kind of push that really hard with his high school friends. The other two Spider-Man in their respective movies, they look like really old, and like all of the high school people look like they're in their mid-30s. So they could easily like
yeah,
do this, but it's going to be hard for Tom Holland. In terms of the Spider-Man, like where he is sitting at right now, those final sequences with him, I think it shows that he is almost pretty much ready to hand off the torch to Miles.
yeah, all right.
Definitely him, like, it's probably hard to notice because when you watch like all of the 3 films so separately from one another, you don't really notice. But just seeing like his audition in Civil War to now, he has
Oh
grown like
yeah.
massively, like in terms of muscle, like he's huge now, but
Mhm.
also like he just looks older as a person.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, I think he's pretty much ready to do that.
Heidi, when do you think they should introduce Miles Morales?
Well, just wanted to add a really quick point that I remember when Into the Spider-Verse came out and there was speculation that Tom Holland's Spider-Man is from the same universe as Peter B. Parker. So
Mhm.
that people were saying that he will end up like that one day. So I can't wait to see if they'll actually
That's
turn Tom
interesting,
Holland
okay.
into looking like a slob. It'll be
I hadn't heard of that theory actually.
I think it was maybe I don't know whether it was like a true theory or not, but like I just remember seeing it. It will be sad for me when I have to look at Tom Holland looking like a slob, just like how many people were disappointed about looking at Chris Hemsworth with like a massive beer belly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think that path does sound like something that Peter would sort of want to do and would be able to do. Like you said, he's grown a lot. And I think even the fact that he tried to sort of coach the other Spider-Man on how to be like a team
Yeah.
sort of shows that he has that ability. But even like just to start off with, if he is really being like a Spider-Man now, he can move into the more of the traditional things and working as a photographer for the Daily Bugle, and you can see that hidden rivalry with him and J. Jonas Jameson, because obviously he knows that he's the guy that exposed his identity previously, so there's going to be some previous beef there.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, no, I like that idea of sort of him passing the torch on to Miles later on and sort of seeing that mentorship across films.
Yeah, I would like to see Miles Morales at some point. My prediction is he'll have 1 film, and then maybe it'll either be in the post credit of that film, or it'll be like set up in the next film. But I don't think the next film is going to be this Spider-Man teaching Miles Morales. So I think they're going to have some fun doing a, Spider-Man in university, J. Jonah Jameson, Daily Bugle. Like it's all, that's very Spider-Man material there. And I feel like they won't pass up the opportunity to throw Tom Holland's Spider-Man into that classic Spider-Man stuff. But we're sort of going to be short on some villains now. We're going to have to see some unknown villains because we can't have MCU Green Goblin show up now because that's just going to be weird.
Yeah.
I mean, there's already some memes about what happens when this Spider-Man goes to university and he sits down next to Gwen. Like, what's he gonna do? Like, or if like his professor is Dr. Kurt Connors and he's like, wait, what? Like, So
That's a good point.
Yeah.
He's just gonna be like thinking of like everything now.
Yeah.
yeah. All right. So, in terms of ranking this with the MCU, is this top tier MCU for you guys?
Heidi?
Definitely towards the top. I think on my letterboxd it's like maybe like Infinity War, Endgame, and then No Way Home. It's definitely one of the best.
Yep. And
Sure.
I'll throw this question to you, Heidi, because I'm genuinely interested. Do you think this is a better movie than Far From Home? Because I know you love Far From Home.
Yeah, no, I think it's a better movie than Far From Home. There's a lot more emotional depth in this one than there was in Far From Home. So yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Jayden, where does this rank on your sort of tier ranking, man?
I think Guardians is still my favorite. I recognize that it's it's not the best movie. I think the villain's pretty trash in it. But I definitely love this movie. I think it's third. I think it goes Guardians, Infinity War, No Way Home. And I enjoyed No Way Home as a movie and as an experience better than I did in Endgame. So
same. I mean, this was perhaps like the most fun theater experience of my life.
Yeah.
And Martin Scorsese can say whatever he wants, but the fact that I had that this movie for me is like the best theatrical experience ever. And I just can't say that about sitting down to watch Taxi Driver on Blu-ray. Like,
or like sitting 3 hours to watch The Irishman.
Yeah, exactly. 3 hours of my life I'll never get back. So for me, on my MCU ranking, it's actually sixth, but that's because I like a lot of these MCU movies before it, and I think that they're better films. So I've got Guardians, Iron Man, Endgame, Infinity War, and Civil War. And that's just because I think those separate movies have like, they're good from the start to the finish, if you know what I mean. Like, whereas I feel like this reaches some incredible highs. I mean, that scene where all of the Spider-Men jump off the scaffolding together, and there's that tracking shot of them running off, and it looks like you're sort of about to run off with them. I'm like, oh yes, give it to me. Like, that is what I want from a Spider-Man movie, especially a team-up Spider-Man movie. And they're all swinging together and stuff. That's fantastic. But the first 30 minutes, I mean, when I watch this at home, I'm just going to have to like look at my phone for the first 30 minutes or something, because it's not as good as the rest of the movie, whereas I think those other movies are superior. So it's sixth for me. Let's go to music segment then. What do we think about the score for this movie? I'll pass it to one of you.
I'll leave it to you, Sam, because
all right.
you've got some thoughts to say here.
Okay. Well, I'm of the opinion that Toby's theme and Andrew's theme from both TASM 1 and TASM 2 are spectacular. They're great themes, some sensational comic book scores, right? And I can't say that about Spider-Man Homecoming and Far From Home by Michael Giacchino. They're just not good. They feel uninspired. They feel like they're lacking weight and, some sort of, it just seems like they never get the epicness of the others. It's just not as good. And I was very worried about the score of this movie, and look, I got what I was worried about, unfortunately. We didn't get TASM 2 theme at all, apart from Electro's theme, but we only get Electro's theme for like 3 seconds. And that is just disgraceful. That is like a brilliant theme by Hans Zimmer and Junkie XL, and it should have been used every time Electro was on screen, but it just wasn't. And Michael Giacchino, you have the easiest job in the world, man. Like, you have all of this music available to you. All you have to do is take that music and put it in where necessary. That's a very simple job. That's a very simple job. And maybe you do a big mashup of the songs for the end when they're all jumping off the scaffolding together. Give us the TASM 2 theme, give us the Toby theme, and Tom's terrible theme. And mash them all together and give us some sort of huge Spider-Man anthem. But he doesn't. He just gives us the standard, Far From Home score. And it's just not good enough. It's just terrible. And it's one of the aspects of the film that just is unequivocally bad. It's Mike Giacchino, please do not score another Spider-Man movie. And that's all I have to say about it. You had one job. You had a very easy job. You needed to give me that TASM 2 score, and you didn't. But he gave me the TASM 1 score, and that's great. I like the TASM 1 score. But you gave it to me for like 5-6 seconds. And that's it. That's all you're going to give me? No. I send it back.
Fair enough. That was very emotional, Sam. Thanks for your thoughts there.
You're welcome. Michael Giacchino, come find me. We'll have a talk.
Look, I think Michael, and I know this for a fact, I don't think you like Michael Giacchino as a composer, Sam.
Well, the only other thing that I've heard of his is Rogue One, and I think some of that music's okay.
Well, let me surprise you here.
I know he's done the Mission Impossible theme, but
let me surprise you again. He's done Incredibles, so Incredibles is a fantastic score. So I think Michael Giacchino definitely has the ability to create a fantastic score. He's also done.
But he didn't. But he didn't here.
He's done Rogue One. He's done Up. Which
look, I respect him.
Yeah, and I respect him as a person and a composer. He's also done War for the Planet of the Apes, which I thought was fantastic.
No, I didn't think that was that good.
Yeah, so that's where I'm saying you don't really like him as a composer.
No, but that's because I hear his music and I'm like, oh, that's not as good. Like, it's not because I see his letterbox and I'm like, oh, I don't like any of his things. So now I'm just like not going to like any of his future projects.
Yeah.
It's just like the Spider-Man theme, you have such great scores preceding Tom Holland's Spider-Man. And you had the chance to reuse them and he just didn't.
Yep. Okay. So, look, I definitely prefer Raimi's... Tobey Maguire's and Andrew Garfield's themes over Tom Holland's. But to say that Tom Holland's Spider-Man theme is like terrible is probably a bit it would be like inaccurate for me to say that. I don't think it's terrible. I think it's just a bit lackluster in comparison to the other two. I was listening to it the other day in the car actually. There's nothing like out of like the original score that Michael Giacchino did. Like his Tom Holland's theme. There's nothing else in that score that is like memorable. All of it's just like rubbish character themes, which you just forget instantly. But I don't mind the Tom Holland theme. I definitely think I'm Spider-Man and Spider-Man themes are better. And so there's potential to put them in this film, which Michael Giacchino just completely like threw out the window, which that's what I hate about it. I don't hate Tom Holland's score. I hate that there was missed opportunities rather.
Sure.
We should have gotten Electro's score when he came in. We should have gotten Tobey Maguire's score more than 5 seconds of it. I think there was like a small snippet of it there. We should have gotten Sandman's theme. We should have gotten all of the characters' themes. I think we get Doc Ock's a bit actually.
Yeah.
We definitely should have gotten Andrew Garfield's and Tobey Maguire's themes mashed with Tom Holland's to create some spectacular score, like you said. But Michael Giacchino just didn't do that for some reason, and that is just like completely wrong. Like so many people
makes me think like is he a fan of Spider-Man? Like, because I think if you're a fan of Spider-Man and you're the composer for this, like, and you have the rights to the other scores, like, why wouldn't you use him?
And it's not a question of they didn't have the rights to it, because they did.
Yeah,
like
because they used it.
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't know.
Heidi, there is one good song in this movie, right? When Doctor Strange is casting that spell at the end.
Yeah, very, very just bold. Or not even bold, just really, really emotional. It's um, high violins, opera voices in the background. Everyone's just about to forget who he is, and yeah, it really just heightens the atmosphere, and it's really elevates everything that's just sort of going on there. So I really liked that. But I think my thing was that in the MCU we don't really have that stuff anyway. We're not very score based. Like I can't really remember any other scores of any MCU films that make such a big impact, like the TASM 2
It's very
Except for the
forgettable.
Avengers
thing.
theme.
Yeah, so I think I went to that movie not expecting there to be anything fantastic. I think they should have included definitely TASM 2. I prefer TASM 2 much, much more over TASM 1. It's best Spider-Man score, very, very bold and triumphant, and it fits his character. But with, yeah, again, I think their themes fit their characters. So, yeah, bold and triumphant for Andrews. Sort of, to be honest, don't kill me for this. I can't really remember what Toby's one sounds like. What is it?
It's a lot of like what is it? Is it like throat singing? It's like, that very atmospheric sort of almost like Jewel of the Fates sort of like opera singing
Yeah.
that you can't really tell the words they're saying, but like it's just like very atmospheric and just loud and in your face, and it is quite good. Like I did spot it a few times, especially when Doc Ock and Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man were having a chat. But yeah, it wasn't used very prominently.
It's very similar to the Flash TV show's theme, if you know what that is.
No.
Forget.
Yeah. Well, I won't even try to explain it.
All right. So for the rewatch playlist this week, I'll find that song that plays when Doctor Strange casts that spell.
It's called
and I'll
Forget
also
Me
try and
Nots.
find the.
Sorry.
Okay.
Forget Me Nots. I've
Okay,
got it
thank
saved
you.
to.
I'll put that one
I've
in
got it
right
saved
now.
to my own playlist, so I'll give
Okay.
you a hand.
Do you happen to know? Do you happen to know the one with the other Spider-Man themes in it?
No, I don't know that one, so you'll have to do some of your own work.
Is it called Arachno Virtue?
I think it's Iraq, because its overture is like a combination of musical
right.
elements.
Yeah,
So
and that's 10 minutes long, so it better be in there.
I'm pretty sure that's it. Because it's
Okay.
like, yeah.
All right, so that song's going in, and then Forget Me Nots is also going in. That's a bizarre name for the song, but oh well. Let's go to some final thoughts then. Who would like to go first?
Heidi, do you want me to go?
Well, yeah, okay.
Oh, I can go first. Look, this has been fun talking about it. I always try to go into films without, sort of creating a bias. I know Sam is very emotional about the Amazing Spider-Man, so in all fairness, trash on this film if it doesn't do certain things. But I was thoroughly surprised with this movie. I thought, there was going to be a lot of fan service, which there was a lot of fan service, but it was more than that. You have Tom Holland just completely acting his heart out here. I absolutely loved him in this movie. I love where he's about to go with the character. He's like giving me faith in his acting skills. Like,
Agreed.
I'm genuinely impressed with what he did here. It sounds funny to say it, but I really
Meanwhile,
liked
Heidi's seen like 4 movies with Tom Holland in this year. He's had a big year.
He
Yeah,
has had a big year.
hasn't he?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And he's definitely a good actor. Like we saw that in Infinity War. When he
died.
Spoilers, when he dies. If I'm sure you've seen Infinity War if you've seen this. So he dies and then he comes back to life. So we've seen his acting range, and then here it was just like on full display. So absolutely love that. Obviously, the huge tonal imbalance was a bit of an issue for me in this. I think when they throw in like a bunch of jokes and then they go back to the more serious nature of it, it's just a bit jarring. So I would have liked them to pick one or the other, obviously the more mature aspect. I loved what they did with obviously Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield in this. I thought their finished character arcs were fantastic. I wouldn't have wanted anything else. I think the humor that they shared between one another was good. Um, the villains they were pretty good as well. Obviously, there's a bit of a time issue, like we talked on previously. So they couldn't get everything in there. I think Michael Giacchino was just totally wrong for ignoring certain scores and themes. So the music's probably the most disappointing part for me, when it should have been one of the best parts. I think the CGI was pretty good at times. Other times it was a bit lackluster, but overall it was pretty good. And as for a cinematic experience, I mean, this was just fantastic to sit down and watch. I think this was definitely the best of the MCU, if not one of the best cinematic experiences I've ever had. And just for that, you have to create sort of a line in between objective and subjective where you just have like blatant fun. And that's what watching movies is about, right? Just having fun.
Yeah.
So I always try to find a mix between them. So I'm going to give this one a B.
Cool. All right, let's go to Heidi. Do you want to have a
Yeah,
go?
let's go. Okay, so I thought this movie was absolutely amazing. I was sitting there 2 days after having my wisdom teeth taken out, it was really good. It made me happy. The interactions with all the Spider-Man was so wholesome. The villains were done really, really great. The fact that they tried to cure all the villains was such a Peter Parker thing to do, and I really, really appreciated that direction, because I thought they were just going to send them all back. So it was a nice thing to sort of see. Again, emotional performances from Tom Holland was fantastic. Jayden, you need to go watch more Tom Holland movies. He does have a good
Do I?
acting range.
What do you recommend?
All of them.
Don't tell me Cherry.
Cherry's not for everyone. Let me think on it and I'll get back to you.
Good.
But yeah.
The Impossible.
Oh, The
The
Impossible.
one where he's a little
Yes,
kid.
that even as a little kid, he was
he's
a
quite
great
young in that,
actor.
isn't
Yeah,
he?
I think he was. Oh, he would have been maybe 12 or something.
Like 7 or 8.
Yeah,
It's with Ewan McGregor, isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. With Obi-Wan Kenobi. Yeah, but because I went into this film expecting there not to be much score, anything additional to that was a bonus. I guess that's from watching those MCU films and not expecting anything. Yeah, it's just a bonus to see anything that's sort of included in that sort of spectre. So that's how I based my rating for that. I'm gonna go with my rating on Letterboxd, and I'm gonna give it an A+. Thanks, boys.
Good.
Fair enough. I think it gets an A+ in all of our hearts. I think it certainly gets an A+ in my heart. And this film, it did the impossible for me, and that was it made me like Tom Holland as Spider-Man.
I thought you were going to say something else. Don't worry about bringing back Andrew Garfield. It made me like Tom Holland.
Yeah. But and then also, not only did it make me like Spider-Man, Tom Holland as Spider-Man. You stuffed me up there, brother. But it also brought back Andrew Garfield in a meaningful way and sort of gave a bit of closure for his character. Hashtag make tasm 3. This is going to get a B+ from me.
A B+.
It's going to get a B+, because while I do not think this is the best Spider-Man film of all time, which a lot of people are claiming it is, it's still a damn good Spider-Man movie for me. I think it ranks 4th. It ranks behind Into the Spider-Verse, The Amazing Spider-Man, and Spider-Man 1 for me. It's just in front of Spider-Man 2.
Interesting.
And there's a bit of a drop-off afterwards there in terms of quality. Even though, TASM 2 was obviously my favourite, followed by TASM 1. And then I think this one comes in. I think this is probably my 3rd favourite Spider-Man movie.
Okay.
So, yeah, thanks to John Watts for bringing in Andrew Garfield. Worst kept secret in Hollywood.
Yep.
And it was great. It was such a great theatrical experience as well. And I'm glad to see that this is making $1 billion at the box office, because now, the media outlets can't call Shang-Chi a success when it hardly makes its budget back because of the pandemic. We're back to normal now. People will show up if it's a good movie. And
Yep.
the thing is, Eternals was not a good movie, so people didn't show up. It's not the
I
pandemic.
like how you just
It's-
speaking on it without watching it.
I know. Nah, I shouldn't say that. I should say that.
Let me
but-
speak about it because I've seen Shang-Chi. Look,
Okay.
yeah, essentially what you said, but I've seen it, so I can say it.
Yeah. So there you go. My opinion has been backed up by hard evidence. There. I'm not just making claims like a madman. So yeah. Well, thanks for listening to this episode of the Rewatch podcast. Thanks to our friendly neighborhood Tom Holland defender for coming on the podcast again. Thanks Heidi for coming back.
Thanks, I had to do my
At such
duty.
short
You know,
notice as
yeah.
well.
You're
Mhm.
welcome.
It would have felt wrong doing this without you.
Yeah, probably. And if you'd like to follow us on Instagram, you can do so at the Rewatch Pod. We also have a TikTok now. God help us.
What
I
have
don't
you
know
done, Sam? What have you
what
done?
the- I think the username's like the Rewatch Pod. I think the username is, so you can follow us on there if you'd like. It's completely up to you, though. You know, if you like your data privacy, then obviously don't do that.
Yeah.
If you would like to subscribe to the YouTube channel, just search the Rewatch on YouTube. For our next episode, I genuinely think, Jayden, we should do
No.
Return of the Jedi.
Okay.
Not Mamma Mia.
I thought you were gonna say Mamma Mia again, bro.
Because I know, Jayden, you've been on my ass. Like, you want to do Mamma Mia really badly. But
I just
we have
I
to.
don't.
Yes,
sorry
you
to
do.
say it, man, I don't.
You told me off screen, off camera, that you really wanted to do
No.
Mamma Mia.
I don't think I said that.
I thought you guys
He's
told
just embarrassed,
me off
viewers.
screen.
He's just embarrassed.
I thought you guys told me off screen that we were
Oh,
going to
God.
do Spirit Man. Spirit was the next project.
Oh God!
I think
God
that's.
help us!
I think that's a bit of fake news there, to be honest.
It has to be
so
done.
It's a bit of a daily bugle going on there.
we better end it here, otherwise we will get dragged into doing all sorts of movies that we don't want to do. So thank you very much for listening, and we'll say bye for now.
See ya.